Welcome to a very special recording of the BeXtraG Podcast, the podcast where pop culture and nerd culture surrounds us, penetrates us, and binds us together. I am one of your hosts, Brett Beswick, alongside my co-host. He was supposed to be the chosen one, Greg Filson.
You were supposed to be the chosen one! Probably my favorite and least favorite scene in Star Wars is that scene. You know, the Force is with me right now. And by the Force, I mean I'm having a little whiskey. So, here we go.
Oh boy.
And blue milk.
Yeah.
And blue milk.
Okay, good. So, you know, as we've alluded to, we're going to break down all 11 feature-length Star Wars films tonight on the BeXtraG Podcast, the extra episode for the month of December. And then we're going to rank them. We've also solicited rankings and comments from the audience, which we've received a few. So we're gonna put those in as it deems fit with whichever movie we're talking about. A couple bits of housekeeping. BeXtraG Podcast publishes every Friday on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Alexa, and as of today, we're on Pandora. I don't know how to find a podcast on Pandora or if anybody even uses Pandora anymore, but as of today, we were finally 3 months in approved for Pandora. So we're on Pandora. We do have the YouTube, which the big news there is that I'm probably going to start to be doing some video content with my PS5, which I got today. It's as big as Greg, so that's fun.
Yeah, it's strong and mighty as well, just like me.
I think I could beat somebody to death with it. That's how big it is, and big and blunt. But anyway,
and neither of us have a disc drive.
Right? Yeah. No. Yeah. I got the digital one, so there is no disc drive. So it is even a little bit smaller than the standard one. If I got the disc, no joke, if I got the disc drive one, I don't think it would fit in my entertainment center because it's pushing the boundaries as it is right now. Like I have it in two different places, and we're already getting off topic, but I have it in two different places. I have it either upstairs on my upstairs TV where I do like most of my gaming and like my Legos and stuff, and I have it standing up and there's no problem. But when I bring it downstairs, we have like an entertainment center and it has these slots, and it just fits in one of those slots. I mean, just fits. It's like sliding a VHS into a VHS sleeve. That's how tight it is. But anyway, we're gonna be talking about that on Tuesday's episode. I'll probably give my impressions of that. But so yeah, I mean, you know, that's sort of the main thing. You know, we have a great show tonight. The Moist Eisley Cantina band is here.
Oh, nice. I'm glad we got them.
Yep. Yeah. So the way we're gonna proceed with this is, and I think this is the best, in my opinion, the best way to proceed. Is we're going to go in chronological order, not as they were released, but in what the canon is. So Episode 1, Phantom Menace, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. We'll pepper Solo and Rogue One in there between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, and then continue on through to the Rise of Skywalker. And the way that I kind of organize this is, rather than give like a full summary of each film, I just kind of basically noted out all of the principal characters of each film, because I think if we talk about them, then the context of what the movie will come out of that, if you're good with that.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
We're going to start with Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and the principal characters I have written down for this particular film are Qui-Gon Jinn, played by Liam Neeson, Obi-Wan Kenobi, played by Ewan McGregor, a young Obi-Wan Kenobi, Emperor Palpatine, played by Ian McDermott, Trade Viceroy Newt Gunray, Darth Maul, Padme / Amidala, played by Natalie Portman, Jar Jar Binks, played by Ahmad Best, and a young Anakin Skywalker, played by, of course, Jake Lloyd. There's probably some other bit characters that you could throw in there. The Jedi Council makes small appearances, and then you have Watto, the junker, the on Tatooine, and you might be able to say something, too, about Anakin's mother, Shmi. But let's start with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. Talk to me a little bit about those characters in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
I like Obi-Wan in these movies. It's, to me, part of the movie that I actually like enjoy is when Obi-Wan is on the screen. And I think it's because Ewan McGregor is actually like a good actor and understands the premise of acting, and the rest of the characters in this movie. It just, the Phantom Menace was like a thing. I'll be honest, I did not see this movie in theater. Even though I grew up loving Star Wars, I did not see this movie in theaters because my parents were not big Star Wars people, and I did not have a driver's license, so somebody had to take me, and it just didn't work out. So I saw this movie like on DVD like a year, whenever it came out on DVD. That's when I watched it. I just remember being horribly like disappointed at 15 from this movie. And so with Obi-Wan standing out to me when it's not supposed to be, it is an Obi-Wan movie in the sense of like he is kind of the main character that guides Anakin and everything like that, but that shouldn't have been the goal of that movie. And I felt like that's where it was. And we'll get to this when we get go to our rankings, but this did not boost my thoughts going forward for those 3 episodes 1 through 3.
I think that Qui-Gon Jinn, Liam Neeson's character, is the most underserved and one of the 2 most underserved and underutilized characters in the entire canon of Star Wars. He was forceful on screen, no pun intended. Liam Neeson, like you said, Ewan McGregor is an actual actor. Liam Neeson is a I mean, he was Oscar Schindler.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's got amazing acting chops. And this was sort of before he was kind of playing those action movies where he's basically the same character all the time. And he was still kind of in that space, not too far removed from Schindler's List. And I thought the character was great. He was, thoughtful. He was a great mentor for young Obi-Wan. I think they missed... Here's the thing I'm going to say about The Phantom Menace is that, and I feel very much the same way about The Force Awakens, and obviously we'll get to that later, but The Phantom Menace to me is a story of missed opportunity.
Yes.
I think that they had a lot here, and they just squandered it. And I think it goes, the next primary character, and I have Palpatine and Trade Federation Viceroy Newt Gunray written before him, but I think the other character in the Star Wars canon and he comes back in like the animated stuff, the most underserved villain for sure is Darth Maul. And I had it written down. Darth Maul is on screen for about 7 minutes.
It's insane. He's maybe the second best villain. I'm not even going to say maybe. He's the second best villain in these movies.
He says 31 words.
Right. Because you sent me that, and then I rewatched. I was like, no, it's got to be longer than 7 minutes. And then I was like,
nope.
When I watched it, I was like, is 7 too high?
Is it even 7 minutes? Yeah.
And it's just like, because you think about all the like merch that came out with this movie. There's so much Darth Maul merch, and it's like,
right.
It's insane
to me. The double-bladed lightsaber,
and the mask,
and the helmet,
and he looks cool. He looks cool.
Right.
And to go back on Qui-Gon, the thing about that character, why like you said, it was so underserved. It was disappointing because when you have good actors, you should utilize them.
Right.
I know George Lucas, with these 3 movies particular, and I always say he gave us 4, 5, and 6.
Right.
He did that. All he wanted to do with these movies is CGI and color them up and make them look like, I don't even know what he wanted to make them look. Yeah, make them look like toys. He was just like, let's sell it to kids when which
is where Jar Jar Binks comes in.
Which it just doesn't work on any level for me. And I've watched this movie. I watch it about every year since I would say 2004, 2005. I watched it, I think, every year. And actually, I think it doesn't get any better ever for me. Actually, it doesn't make me sad as much as it actually makes me angry. I think this is the biggest problem I have with these 3 movies, but in particularly this one, even though I have we'll find out I actually rank the other 2 lower. The thing with this, the reason why I end up ranking those lower is because I feel like you saw what you did wrong with this one,
right, and
you don't fix it. You actually to me, you kind of just say, oh, let's see how far we can dig this ditch. And maybe we'll come out the other side. Because this one just... And I'm not gonna crap on Anakin Skywalker as the little kid. This is a little kid that's thrown into quite possibly the most famous character in sci-fi movie history.
Right.
I'm not going to do that, but what I am going to do is crap on George Lucas, because you did give us awesome movies, and I will never. But then you gave us this, and this was such a disappointing start, and it just makes me mad because I love these movies, and to just have that come out as like, hey, we're back in Star Wars. It's like, no, we're not. This was not Star Wars.
To touch on Jake Lloyd, Anakin Skywalker for a minute, he was 10 when he was acting as this role. Anakin was 9. Natalie Portman, who played Amidala / Padme, was 18.
Yeah.
And she was supposed to be 14. So it's not, because it comes across as like creepy.
Right.
A little bit, because he seems so young, and we're all like, Natalie Portman, like looking at like now, and it's like, oh, she's the Black Swan, and you know, some of the other roles she's taking, Jane Foster in the Thor movies and stuff, she's very adult and womanly. And when you look back at her and you watch this movie now, you're like, it's creepy to see her acting like almost like, I don't say seductively or romantically, but just how tender she is.
Right.
Is like, it kind of comes across as creepy. But when you realize that there's only a 4-year gap between the characters, or what they're supposed to be, it makes it a little bit better.
I guess, but then I do look at that like in high school kind of thing.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
You don't want to be the senior,
the 8th grader dating a fourth grader.
You don't. Yeah, that's super weird. I was gonna say a senior dating like an 8th or 9th grader is always kind of weird too.
But that's what it is. It would be an 8th grader dating a 4th grader.
Right.
Yeah.
That's super weird.
That's we have a word for that, and that's illegal. But Jake Lloyd had only ever been in one other thing, and that was Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Just watched that the other day.
Congratulations. Did you recognize him?
Yeah. We always recognize him, yeah.
Okay. Like you said, he's being cast as the guy who turns into Darth Vader. The kid who turns into the guy that turns into Darth Vader. Darth Vader, like you said, being, you know, one of, if not the most famous character in science fiction history. That's a tough gig, man. Yeah. You know, everything that I've ever heard about George Lucas, great screenwriter, terrible director.
Right.
And so when you have these inexperienced people, because even Natalie Portman at 18, she wasn't Black Swan yet. She's new. Ewan McGregor was new. Some of these other characters that maybe hadn't seen a lot of. Because I think the one thing that is nice about Star Wars, for the most part, is they're not going out and getting like these big names.
Right.
1 through 9. You know, 1 through 9 plus the 2 offshoot movies. You know, the biggest name's Harrison Ford. And he wasn't even huge at the time.
No.
I mean, he'd come off American Graffiti. He wasn't indie yet. You know, Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill are those characters.
Yeah.
They can't escape those characters. I mean, they've both done other things. We know Mark Hamill as the voice of the Joker in the Batman animated series and across a lot of different platforms for that. But, you know, outside of really like Qui-Gon with Liam Neeson and really Mace Windu, Samuel L. Jackson, you don't get a lot of like movie star type people that show up in these movies. Usually it's people, and we mentioned this in one episode, like Daniel Craig, who's a fan and he just wants to be in it, so they just throw him in there as a stormtrooper. Right. And he doesn't say anything, he's just on set and he gets to dress up as a stormtrooper. That's usually how these things go. But I think that's a positive, but I also think the downside of that is you're putting these actors and actresses in a very difficult situation of the expectations for these films are enormous. And the expectations specifically for this film, there was no way they could have lived up to it.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
Even if it was decent, it wouldn't have lived up to the expectations.
No.
And I think that's the thing, kind of going back to my whole theme with the Phantom Menace, is just missed opportunity and squandered opportunity, because there's so much that could have gone right with this. I'm telling you right now, and I'll go blow for blow on with anybody. The Duel of the Fates at the end of the movie with Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Darth Maul is the best lightsaber fight, bar none, all 9 movies. And you can say, you know, some of the things that they did with Rey and Kylo Ren in maybe The Last Jedi, they don't hold a candle to that lightsaber fight. And it was so choreographed, and they said there's very little CGI. It's all practical effects. It's all choreographed stuff. And it was difficult because Obi-Wan, Ewan McGregor and Ray Park, who was the body actor for Darth Maul, are both 5'9", and Liam Neeson's 6'4".
Yeah.
So there was very difficult for them to choreograph that fight. And the other thing was the one of the coolest things is when they go through those closing energy gates.
Yeah.
And Liam Neeson sits down and closes his eyes like he's meditating, and Darth Maul paces back and forth of him like a caged tiger. That was both of them completely improv.
That's awesome.
And so that and the music, I rewatched the first 3 episodes, 1 through 3, Solo, and Rogue One for this podcast. The rest of them I've seen all pretty recently. I get goosebumps when that fight starts. They take out everybody in the starship hangar, or the fighter hangar, and the gate opens, and there's Darth Maul, and he's standing there with his hood down and his head on the floor, and they say, "We'll handle this." And the music starts up, and they all take their robes off. I get chills.
Yeah, it's a great scene.
I get chills. And that's what, I don't know if there's any 30 seconds in any of these movies that encapsulates what Star Wars is more than that moment. And so for that to be in this movie and the rest of it to be so bad is just so disappointing. And it's poor writing. They should have held on to Maul. They should have held on to Qui-Gon for at least another film each, if not all 3, the whole way through the prequels. You know, we're going to get into the other villains. They're not anywhere close to as cool or interesting or mysterious or anything as Darth Maul. No. They just had something. I swear to you, man, they just had something and they didn't know what they had.
Yeah,
and they just squandered it.
It feels like a movie, and I said this the other day when I was talking about it. They had the ending. They had no idea how to get to it.
Right. Yes. 100%.
That's what they had. They had Aroldis Chapman, and then they had nothing else. They had no starting pitching, right. And it was just like, how do we get to him? We don't know, because that ending is great. And it's like, every time I watch that movie, I always, I'm not gonna lie to you, I fall asleep through the middle, and I kind of just like, hey, wake me up when we get to that ending scene, because that scene's awesome.
Right. Yeah.
And because I don't know, there's not a lot of, and that's my problem with all 3 of these movies. I care so little about what's actually happening, because like they do nothing through most of it, and then it's like, ending, here's everything.
Right.
And that's that. And all the other, I will actually say every other Star Wars movie, other than these 3, the middle parts of the movie are actually all semi-important. These 3, the middle parts of these movies have nothing to do with anything. They're just filler. I feel like they all had endings that were written, and then they're just like, let's figure our way out there.
I will disagree with you a little bit on this one, because the middle is where you find Anakin, and you get the
okay. Well, all right. Okay. Yeah.
The pod race is another excellent section of this movie, and it's another one of those things where it's like the pod race had so much adrenaline, and I did see it in theaters. I can't remember how old I was when this came out.
99.
99, 98. Yeah. So I would have been like 14 or 15. You know, we saw it in the theaters, and that's one of those like edge of your seat.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a Star Wars movie, and you know what's going to happen. You know that Anakin's not going to crash and die because of what he becomes. But at the same time, it's just so exhilarating. So that, and I think that the pod race gets lost a little bit in everything. But I think it's an awesome scene. We do have a few. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just because we don't know how old Darth Vader is, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
in the scheme of things, do you ever? Because I thought about this, and this is the first time. Well, I mean, like,
I think we do.
I'm guessing just
because we know how long everything
takes place. My thing is, was there a problem maybe boosting everything 5 years?
Sure.
That's basically like make Anakin a teenager when these movies start. I feel like that might have just...
Right.
I'm not saying boost... Let's not boost it 10 years. Let's just boost it 5 years, make him a teenager. And this is nothing... Like I said, this is nothing against... It's just... I feel like everything's slightly more believable, and also you don't have the creepiness factor as much.
George Lucas even said recently that was... He got a lot of heat from the studio regarding building that film around a 9-year-old character. So there is that. We do have some comments regarding, and I'm going to pepper these in as people kind of put them in for each one. Jared L. Writes in, and he says that the best parts of The Phantom Menace are the pod race and Duel of the Fates, so we're with you on that one. Let's see here. Savannah W. Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn are fantastic. Darth Maul should have been in 2 and 3. Some overall cringe brings it down. I think I'm on board with all of those comments as well. Dan M. writes in and says, forget everything else, Duel of the Fates. And Eddie M. writes in and says, Phantom Menace is the best because of Jar Jar. I'm going to choose to ignore that. Let's talk about Jar Jar Binks for a second. We didn't really touch on him.
Jar Jar Binks, the idea of Jar Jar Binks was to make a droid character that wasn't a droid.
Right.
Let's have C-3PO, let's have R2-D2, but let's not make him that. But it just went way too, like, let's have a PBS Kids show character, but in a Star Wars movie, and let's boost him to 11. And that's literally what it is. And it's just, that's all they were trying to do. They were trying to have a droid without being a droid. They just did it really, because I actually think every other droid in every other Star Wars movie is at least stomachable. And, obviously C-3PO, and I don't have to say this, but they're great. And they're, even when they're annoying, they're great. But this was just like, there's never a redeemable part with him. They knew they screwed that up. That was the one thing, like, they fixed that, but that's all they fixed for me. And it's just, like I say this about I'll say this a lot about these 3 movies. All of it just kind of bums me out, because with the hype and with just it being Star Wars and other, just other things kind of being at hand, it's just like, there's so much potential. And every time I watch these movies too, I think little pinpoint areas, and it's like you said with the pod race and the ending scene, is just like, you had these ideas. What happened everywhere else? Why, there's that great writer in there. And it's just, if you had somebody else directing it, and I don't even know at the time if you have a different director in mind. I don't know. It's just one of those weird things where, like, Jar Jar Binks is actually, to me, symbolic of all 3 of these movies. They really tried to shoot for the moon, and they fell so far through the clouds that they just smashed right into the earth. And that's how I feel.
It's important to talk about the settings. One of the cool things about Star Wars is they take you to so many settings. The Gungan City, this is, again, and like I said, I keep going back to missed opportunity, squandered opportunity. How cool was the Gungan City, an all underwater city? You know what I mean?
Atlantis.
It looked cool. It looked like a video game.
Yeah, it was Atlantis.
Atlantis. But then you have these characters in it, and they speak silly, and then Jar Jar speaks even more silly, and Boss Noss looks like this giant toad. It was just a mess. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like having Kevin Durant on a wide open 3 and him just clanking it off the rim, man. This is like the worst game of Kevin Durant's life. Yeah. And that's what the Phantom Menace is. It's just brick after brick on wide open shots, because, Maul, Qui-Gon, the pod race, the ending scene, the Gungan City, the political stuff that a lot of times gets kind of brushed under the rug in Star Wars, but is really interesting if you explore it. And I think that's one of the reasons why Rogue One is so good, is because they actually take a little bit of time to explore that a little bit, and explain why is there a blockade? Like, what is the goal of the Tread Federation's blockade of this particular planet? Why is that a thing? Why is this the planet? Why is it not a different one? I was talking to our friend Bob Sakamon about this the other night. So the difference between Marvel and the difference between Star Wars is anything that is important in a Marvel movie has been explained in a Marvel movie. Right. Now, they may not connect directly. You may get something that's important in a Captain America movie that was explained in an Iron Man movie. You may get something that's important in a Thor movie that is explained in a Guardians movie. But it's in there somewhere.
Yeah, you'll figure it out.
The problem with Star Wars is that you have to watch the cartoons, and you have to read the novels, and you have to read the comic books, and you read the companion. Just show me the movie. Yeah. Like 90%. There's hardcore Star Wars people out there, and when I was younger, I read the novels, and I enjoyed them. And I've picked up a comic book here or there or whatever, and I've tried to get into the cartoons. 90% of the people who are into Star Wars, whether they're huge fans or not, they're going to see these movies, and that's it. They're going to watch Mandalorian. Yep. And that's it. They're not going to watch Clone Wars. They're not going to watch Rebels. They're sure as hell not going to read a novel. They're not going to read any comic books. Just show me the movie in 2.5 hours. Don't make me, and this is going to come up when we do the sequels, don't make me go read a companion novel to explain a major plot point.
Right.
And so, just getting back to the Phantom Menace, just missed opportunity.
Yep.
Missed opportunity.
Yep.
And, I think a lot of people hate this movie. A lot of people hate the prequels. I don't like the prequels. But I actually like the Phantom Menace, but it's almost like a Stockholm Syndrome type thing, where it's like, I like it because of what it...
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to say.
It's like I like it for what it should have been, or could have been, rather than what it was.
I'm going to say I hate these movies. And the more I watch them, the more I hate them. It's actually the same reason. Because of what they should have been. And it just drives me, drives me nuts, especially when we're going to say this, with the original, it's hard to compare anything to the original three, any kind of sci-fi movie. But then when you watch Empire Strikes Back, and you're like, this is not just a good Star Wars movie, this is not just a great Star Wars movie, this is probably the greatest sci-fi movie ever made, if you actually care. Mm-hmm. For that to be part of this actual expanded universe of all these things, it disappoints me so much. And I know it's hard to live up to that. I 100%, we talked about Indiana Jones before in this. Right. It's hard to live up to this. These movies aren't even, these movies can't be in the same, continent. You couldn't even have them in the same continent. They're so weird. And, I think this is where we move on to the next one, because it's just, this is where I actually get the maddest.
So the next one is Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. We have Hayden Christensen taking over for Jake Lloyd as a teenage Anakin Skywalker. Obi-Wan is now a full-fledged Jedi Knight. He was still a Padawan in the first one. He was Qui-Gon's Padawan. We get more of the Jedi Council. Mace Windu, played by Samuel L. Jackson, as we mentioned, Yoda, a couple other Jedi. Padme is now, she's a senator. She's moved on. We didn't really talk about Palpatine with the first movie, so we'll bring him in here a little bit. What becomes Emperor Palpatine, but at the time is he's just a senator and becomes viceroy of the Galactic Republic. We get the clone folks on the cloners of Kamino, and the clones are the original clone is a bounty hunter named Jango Fett, who is of course the quote unquote father of Boba Fett. He kept a clone that was not enhanced by the aging techniques or whatever that made these clones grow up faster, so that Boba is a kid. So we see, kid Boba Fett, basically. But I guess we should note that the actor who plays Jango Fett, Tamora Morrison, right? Morrison?
Yeah.
Is reprising, he's Boba Fett in The Mandalorian, so that's a very cool thing. And then the primary antagonist in this one is Count Dooku, played by
Christopher Lee. Yep.
Okay. So the primary antagonist is Count Dooku, played by Christopher Lee, who is most famous for playing Saruman the Wise in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and also Willy Wonka's dad in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So then you got that. So this movie is
bad.
You see the Jedi Council. They send Anakin and Obi-Wan to protect Padme because there's been an attempt on her life. Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan, traces it back to these cloners on Kamino with Jango Fett. Anakin is left with Padme to kind of be her bodyguard back on Naboo. Meanwhile, Palpatine in the first one, he's a senator from Naboo, oddly enough. And he is a senator, and they voted no confidence in the previous Chancellor Valorum, and Palpatine is elected Supreme Chancellor of the New Republic Senate. And so this one is where you kind of see him start pulling the strings a little bit more. If you're an idiot, you won't be able to tell that he's Darth Maul's master in the first one. I mean, if you're like completely brain dead, you can't tell. But you kind of see things are he's pulling the strings a little bit more. he's clouding the sight of the Jedi, of Yoda and Mace Windu and these other Jedi Masters. They wind up on this planet where they're in an arena or like a coliseum with these bug men. A fight ensues with these animals for some reason. And, Padme and Anakin are able to escape. They free Obi-Wan. They're killing these animals. They're killing all the bug men. And then they get surrounded, and then the Jedi show up. And the Jedi start going ham and killing everybody, and that's led by Mace Windu. And then they kind of get cornered by, this endless horde of these bugs. And then the clones show up. And then the clones, they start cleaning house, and this is the case of this movie is, like you said, the middle is nothing.
I was screaming at the TV.
Nothing.
The other Janie is just like, what were you yelling about? I was like, I was watching Attack of the Clones and was screaming at the TV because I'm like, give me something, because you're literally giving me nothing here. Nothing has happened. There's no story development. There's just colors on the screen. It's so weird. It literally looks like you're watching a show made for a 4-year-old. There's a bunch of stuff moving around. There's colors, and then there's nothing happening. And one thing, too, that just bugs me so much, and this is just based purely on how Hayden Christensen is a terrible actor, is that there's no chemistry between those two.
Well, and that's what the issue is the middle of this movie is supposed to be developing their romance.
Right. And there's nothing there. I mean, it is like, I look more lovingly at a nice bottle of whiskey than he does at, like, literally anything. Like, it's just so dead inside. And I don't know if that's him just being, Darth Vader. I don't think he's that good of an actor.
No.
And it just, because, I feel like I could just run into Natalie Portman at my bookstore that I work at, and I would look at her more lovingly than he does in this movie just by accident. It's just like, right. And she has been in at the bookstore, and I guess she's very nice. But
she has?
Yeah, I was not there for that, but she has been there, and she's super nice. It's just one of those weird things where it's just like nothing is happening. They're trying to develop this relationship, and even the ending is just kind of meh. Even though we talk about how they write the endings to these movies, and then they kind of figure it out after that. It's like the ending of this movie, when I just watched it a couple days ago, it stopped. The movie was over, and I was like, huh? And I just literally just watched this a year ago, and I was like, that's right. I forgot that there's nothing that actually happens at the end of this movie. It just does the Star Wars thing where the movie ends, and you're like, oh. Okay.
Three things that happened in this movie that I wrote down that just send the hate machine into overdrive for me. Number one,
the beginning, the middle, and the end.
Yeah. Well done. Number one, the scene with Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman, Anakin and Padme, where they're at the lake house, I guess.
I think so. Keanu doesn't show up, but they're there.
There's a fire going, it's dark, and they're literally just staring at each other.
Yeah.
And I think this is what you're talking about, and they're supposed to be building that sort of like, the tension without saying anything. But it's like two cardboard cutouts staring at each other. And it's rough. And it's rough. Number two for me on the hate overdrive for Attack of the Clones. When he massacres the Sand People. And she comes in and is basically like, what's wrong? And he's like, killed them. All of them. It's just terrible.
It's so bad.
Acting.
Yeah.
He just is
He's
like
so
a petulant child. It's just, and I get it. They don't want to schedule, they don't want to cast names. They don't want to cast movie stars. Maybe somebody that's not Hayden Christensen.
There are plenty of people out there.
There's plenty. There at the time there was like 6 billion people.
I was 17 or something at the time. I would have definitely. I bet I would have done a better job being in love with Natalie Portman at 17. I guarantee it.
I know.
I would have. I guarantee it. Who knows? It might have changed my whole life.
Might have changed hers.
Hell yeah, I would have.
Number 3. I'm going to get the bleep machine going here. And I don't know if you noticed in the last episode, I figured it out.
Yeah, you did. It was really good.
Yeah. So the bleep.
I'm glad we can bleep now.
The bleeps are coming right now. Okay, I'm gonna wait till you swallow that drink. I fucking hate the scene where Yoda lightsaber fights Count Dooku, and when I say I fucking hate it, I mean I fucking hate it.
It's so funny you said that, because I said to Jane, I was like, at least this movie has that fight. And I forgot, because I was like, it's one of those things. And then I realized how much I actually fucking hate it. Because it's just like, I always think back that I'm going to like it. And then I realized that I'm going to fucking hate it. And there's there's actually one reason why I fucking hate it. Why?
Because it looks bad?
Well, it looks terrible. Bad? Why is Yoda's lightsaber smaller? How does a lightsaber know to be smaller?
To be little.
And also, that's not fair to Yoda.
Right.
I don't think lightsabers weigh more when the light comes out. It's light.
I don't know. It's light.
I haven't owned one yet, but
right. Yeah, me either.
I'm guessing you're.
It's just.
I would be really mad if I had a lightsaber, and because you're taller than me, yours is like slightly longer than mine. That's not fair. This got weird, but anyhow.
It's bad CGI.
It's bad everything.
It's just a bad choice. It's like, I get it. Here's the thing, and this is one of those that probably is like, it was a good idea. It seemed like a good idea at the time.
It's a great idea at the time,
sort of thing, because it's like, it would be awesome if Yoda was lightsaber fighting. That would be so cool. But in a sense, it diminishes the character a little bit, because he's walking around like a little cripple with a cane, and then all of a sudden he turns into a Cirque du Soleil performer. No.
It would have been cool if he just used the Force.
Yeah,
I was just throwing him around. He's got his cane, and he's just like, "Here, I'm forcing things around." That's because
100%.
He could have done that because he's Yoda.
Right.
He definitely could just throw people around just using the Force. Yeah.
He turns into one of those kids juggling other kids on his feet in Cirque du Soleil, and it was just lame.
Yeah. You know what it was? Yeah. Before we'll move on to the third one right after I say this. I think they knew they screwed up, and they're like, we need something, and this was just them trying to throw something in there, because that's all this one is, and we'll find out when I rank it. It's just a bunch of crap thrown onto a plate, and you just call it food, because there's nothing else it is.
It was just, some comments on this. Dan M. Attack of the Clones, too long, but sets up good TV.
No.
Oh, the Clone Wars.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I don't. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Let's see. Here we got Savannah W. Clone Wars. She said maybe a few interesting parts, all of which had Obi-Wan. I don't necessarily disagree with that. His tussle with Jango Fett on Kamino was pretty interesting. Jared L. The big battle scene. It's fine. It's not as good as other ones.
No.
But I guess it's fine. I mean, this is I think Attack of the Clones is pretty universally put towards the bottom of these lists.
Yes.
Which makes sense because it is a third sandwich. The third movie, episode 3, is Revenge of the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
And we go through the characters. The movie starts with General Grievous, who is a cyborg that coughs all the time, so thank you for reminding me of that. And he's kidnapped Palpatine, and it's up to Obi-Wan and Anakin to get him back. And it's a big battle, and it's a crazy lightsaber fights, and Dooku's involved briefly. He doesn't stick around long because Anakin cuts his head off. Grievous gets away, and then the whole movie is kind of, Palpatine basically revealing to Anakin that he's a Sith, and he knows things that the Jedi will never teach him that'll be useful to him. And because Anakin is so obsessed with, he has these dreams that Padme dies in childbirth. He finds out that she's pregnant. And he's so obsessed with trying to stop that he's basically willing to do anything. So that's kind of an interesting angle. I do want to, well, I'll get to that. But that's sort of what it is. And the whole movie really is Palpatine playing Anakin against the Jedi and Anakin being caught in this struggle. I think that the premise of the film itself is fine. It's just poorly executed.
The premise of this movie is a Star Wars movie. Sith, Jedi, good, bad, all that good stuff that you want.
Conflict.
Inner conflict with yourself. And it's just, all this is great. And if you had never seen Star Wars and you read the description of this movie, you're gonna be like, that's a great movie. That's a great movie. And then you watch it and you're like, well, nothing happened for a little while. And then there's a little bit of conflict. And then nothing happened again. And Anakin gets super upset because he has these dreams. Okay, but also it's Hayden Christensen who can't act, so you just aren't sure if he's actually upset or if he's just like, because he's got the dark side in him. And and once again, I'm not sure if Hayden Christensen's that good of an actor to like actually summon the dark side while he's doing stuff.
Right.
And the Palpatine stuff is, but what I'll really touch on was just, and I understand this is part of the plot of like turning someone into the dark side. The youngling thing is,
wow, that's what I was going to give a special shout out to.
It's so bad every time.
That seed's messed up.
It's so bad every time, and I'm ready for it every time. I'm like, well, here it comes. Here comes this madness. And then every time I'm like, welp.
Master Anakin.
It's like, this is just as bad, if not worse, than every time I've seen it. And
it's dark. It's dark, man.
The thing is, this whole movie's super dark. And we talk about how like the Disneyfication. This is the anti-Disneyfication, because obviously it wasn't Disney at the time. But it's so far off that like original, because of course the original Star Wars movies are not Disneyfied, but they're also not crazy dark.
Right.
This movie gets so dark at times where it's like, it was almost the counter to the lightness of maybe the other movies.
It's so dark that Anakin's killing toddlers.
Right. They're just like, oh, okay, well, we knew we screwed up here. It's because they just didn't know how to adjust. It's kind of like, I guess the best way would be to describe it is like, the last time I baked a cake, it was a little underdone. Let me burn it this time.
Sure. So I think they started to show signs of him in Attack of the Clones having a little bit of, maybe the dark side. But I think because of A, the writing, and B, his inability to pull it off, it came across as him being more of a hormonal teenager that's just copping a bad attitude than him having like spats of darkness, other than I guess massacring an entire village of sand people, which
whatever.
But
who
I
hasn't
think
thought
that
about
they
that?
should have. Well, who hasn't done it?
That's true.
Just me.
Oh, well, I mean, I didn't do an entire village.
Tusken Raiders, we should say. But I feel like they should have shown more of that in Phantom Menace. And what I mean by that is they kind of play it up, especially with Yoda when he goes before the Jedi Council of, I feel cold, I feel, I miss my mother and all this. I wanted to see more of like the kid burning ants with a magnifying glass.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's no way you could like not do that. You could have easily done something like that. Just something weird.
Well, they couldn't pull it off the way the character was written for Phantom Menace. And that's kind of where the problems started, is they should have been showing that sort of sinister streak.
Yeah.
The whole way. Do you know what would have worked for me? And I think this would have shown it. Is if in the pod race, rather than him just being able to have quick reflexes and fix things on the fly and all this, what if he would have taken something and thrown it at somebody and made them crash?
Right.
You know what I mean? And that kind of shows that sort of the willingness to do whatever it takes to get the thing I want. which is really what Revenge of the Sith was all about, was when you come back to it, he was willing to do whatever so that Padme was safe.
Right.
And I think if they would have shown, if that's the attribute that they would have keyed in on, I'm going to do whatever I have to for whatever my desired result is. I think that they would have sold the whole character from tip to tail a lot better, rather than just he's this scared little bitch man. Because that's what he ends up being.
What it kind of is it's just basically like they made him just kind of throw up all this instead of just, you know, having a normal, just, you know, he went from cute little kid, naive or whatever, to just being like, oh my god, I need to just kill everyone.
Right.
Not seemingly out of nowhere, because, I mean, like, here's the thing. That always nothing saves these movies to me, but he is Darth Vader.
Right.
At the end of the day, which you always have in the back of the head. But my thing is with these movies, is you have to pretend like we don't know.
Yeah, sure.
That's the problem, and they didn't pretend that. They're like, he's Darth Vader. He is the most evil person in the history of time. And, you know, for whatever reason, that's just what you're supposed to kind of think. And whether he is or isn't. But it's just one of those things where, like, here it is. And, like, but they had this whole thing where it's like, that's what those movies kind of thrive off of. Is like, well, he's Darth Vader. So.
Well, even I remember with Phantom Menace, the marketing for it. And this was on, like, freaking Doritos bags and Pepsi cans.
Oh, sure.
Was the image of Jake Lloyd, and he's got the backpack over his shoulder, and he's walking away from a building in Tatooine, and the shadow that he's casting is the shadow of Darth Vader.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And that's sort of like problem is that they knew where they were, as you have said, they knew where they're going. They know he's going to end up as Darth Vader at the end of the third movie. They just don't know how they're going to get there.
No.
And that's sort of what the problem was, is that it felt like, you know, flying by a lot of the seat of their pants, and I think that they chose the wrong sort of characteristics and attributes the whole way through to point out that if they really would have focused in on that, just I'm going to do whatever I have to do. Because that's sort of the problem I have with the Jedi and the Sith is that you can't realistically have something that's wholly good or wholly evil. It's just not possible. And so I was really hoping to get a lot of that with the sequels, and I thought that that's the direction
they were going that direction.
We'll get into that, but Anakin, in a sense, you know, they say he's supposed to be the one that brings balance to the Force. He kind of is, because he has the good and he has the bad. But the issue is that these movies aren't good.
Right? Yeah.
So you know, there's so many technical things that are wrong with them. The CGI is poor; it doesn't hold up. You know, some of the different, you know, the effects they're way too overblown. Here's my other issue is, and this is one of those situations that I talked about with, why are we introducing new characters?
Right.
New important characters in the last movie of a trilogy, where you know where they don't bring any new major people in to Return of the Jedi. You know, everybody's established. So we don't have to take time. And so now it's like, you know, Obi-Wan spends the whole movie chasing after General Grievous. We don't even know who the hell this guy is. Yeah. And so it's problematic, and that's a big issue I have with the sequels. But we'll get there. But, you know, let's take some comments here. Savannah says, Revenge of the Sith, some cool action things. Obi-Wan, I think she's got a crush on Ewan McGregor.
I can get that.
Maybe.
He's a good looking guy.
Yeah, I'm down with that. Dan M, Revenge of the Sith, bad dialogue for the biggest moments. So I think that's what you were supposed to say.
I hold the higher ground. Yeah, it's bad.
So, okay, Jared L, Order 66, and then seeing how the Empire rose to power. That's kind of the cool, you know, that's one of those things where it's just like all the ingredients were there. You just burned the cake. And, you know, let's talk a little bit about that final sort of fateful battle between between Obi-Wan and Anakin / at this point he's actually Darth Vader. He's just not,
Right.
what we're used to seeing as Darth Vader on Mustafar, the fire planet. It's a really long lightsaber.
Super
fight.
long. Wow. I think the biggest problem I have with it, other than it being super long, is that he's Darth Vader and he sucks
Right.
at fighting. Like he's just like, you're Darth Vader. Why is he just so bad at this right now? And I understand it's Obi-Wan. I'm not, but Obi-Wan is maybe, he might be in your top 5 most powerful people in these movies. He's not number 1. He's not Luke.
No.
He's not
No.
Yoda, and he's not Darth Vader. And why is he just getting the floor? Like, he is getting destroyed in this. This is like an old Tyson fight. It's bad. It's real. The thing is like, maybe, okay, so he's becoming Darth Vader. You don't know, like, that this is how, I guess, you know what I mean? Like, where he just gets his ass wiped. Sure. Like, it's terrible. He doesn't even, like, he never looks like he has a chance in this thing. And I think it's the other part where, like, they just kind of give up. They're like, well, we just kind of have to burn him in a volcano so we can bring him back with all this robotics. It's a terrible ending scene with some awful dialogue, bad acting. I mean, the best thing is we know we're done with Hayden Christensen. That's where, like, I get a little relief.
Well, we thought we were.
I should say, yeah. Well, yeah. At the moment, we were like, "Oh, we're done with this guy." But it's a terrible scene. It gets worse every time, mostly because I scream it. I just scream it at Janie sometimes. I'll just look at her for no context needed, and I'll be like, "You're supposed to be the chosen one." I'll just do it for no reason.
I know people who think that this is the best lightsaber fight.
I hope we don't know those people that much longer. Because it's terrible. We actually just saw a lightsaber fight the other day that is ranked now in the top 3 as far as I'm concerned. There's not a lot of fighting on the other end, but...
Right, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. The scene where Vader, now in his all black helmet and everything, comes off the operating table like Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah.
And
I think that's what they were going
poor
for.
James Earl Jones.
Yeah. Jeez.
God bless him. Coming back to voice him. No.
He was just trying to find the field of dreams, and this is what happens.
Listen. God bless James Earl Jones.
Yes.
And the work that
Amen.
he does. Amen. So that concludes the prequels, which...
Thank God.
Thank God. Yep. So now we move on to the 2 interstitial movies that are both
That's a good word.
Disney. These are Disney movies. Solo, a Star Wars story, and then Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Solo chronologically takes place before Rogue One, so we'll tackle that first. The primary characters here are obviously Han Solo. He meets up for the first time with Chewbacca. Beckett, played by Woody Harrelson. Kiara, played by Emilia Clarke. And Lando Calrissian, played very, very capably by Donald Glover.
Beautifully.
And then the droid, Lando's droid L337. I didn't write the actress's name down.
She's in Fleabag.
Yes, she is.
Her name just escaped me too, as I was thinking it. Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Yeah. So this is basically, Han Solo gets off of his home planet. He runs in with these gangsters who are trying to steal this fossil fuel or this type of fuel or whatever. And then it's kind of like it's very much what I feel like you would expect from a young Han Solo movie. There's just betrayals right and left.
Yeah.
There's solid action sequences. There's very good sequences of him flying the Millennium Falcon, and this is also kind of the origin story of the Falcon to some extent, and Han and Chewie's relationship with the Falcon. Han he's one of the most popular characters. I would say he's more popular than Luke.
He's more popular than Luke, which always disappoints me because, and I get it. Yeah. Oh, also because Harrison Ford is considered cooler than Mark Hamill, but which is a bummer because I like Luke Skywalker, and I'm just gonna Luke Skywalker is my favorite character in any movie ever.
Oh wow!
In the sense of that, he is the strongest person with the Force. He is the most important person in any movie, like essentially any movie ever. I mean, he really is. And then what happens in The Mandalorian,
no comment.
This is for me. I love Luke Skywalker, and
I'm just saying I just don't want to get
right.
into
Okay, sure. Right. Okay. And it always bums me out because I love Harrison Ford and I love Han Solo and I love this movie. Actually, I always think that, and this is a good spot. I always think Mark Hamill gets the short end of the stick with these things because he's not Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford was able to go and do different things. Mark Hamill was Luke Skywalker, the most important character in these movies, and he was unfortunately not able to go and do like different things other than mostly voice acting. But he's also a great voice actor and plays the Joker as a voice actor, a very important character, and he like owns all this. That's the thing I love about Mark Hamill. He owns all of this, and
I know I said I didn't want to get into it, but did you see his tweet? Friday. Seen anything good on TV?
I reposted on my Instagram.
Yeah, he's
the best. Great. He's so good. I love Luke Skywalker because
here's the thing. This is the difference between him and Harrison Ford, which I don't even know necessarily why we're talking about Harrison Ford because
it's a solo movie.
He's played by but he's not played.
True, but it's just it's a good way to go into it.
Yeah, sure.
And it leads into the other movies.
The problem with this is the difference. The difference is that Mark Hamill knows exactly how much Luke Skywalker and Star Wars means to everybody.
Right.
And he loves the character.
Yep.
Harrison Ford does not like being Han Solo.
Right.
He's been on the record as saying that. He said he believes the character is shallow. He doesn't have any depth. He doesn't like playing him. That's why he's played Indy so many times. He says Indiana Jones is my character.
Right.
That's the character that I identify with. He doesn't he gets it.
I would say he actually gets it in the sense of like you shouldn't think Han Solo is the coolest character.
Well, no, he gets it how much Han is Han and Star Wars and everything is important to people. He just doesn't care.
Right.
And it costs so much to get him back for what little he did in the sequels. What Harrison Ford made on those movies compared to what Daisy Ridley and John Boyega and Oscar Isaac made. I don't think the three of them combined made as much as Harrison Ford.
No.
And there's name recognition of it's Harrison Ford. But I know because he said, when people ask him jokingly oh, hey man, who shot first, Han or Greedo? And he's just like, I don't care.
Right.
It's not, whereas Mark Hamill gets it, how important this character is to people. And so he kind of respects the role a little bit more than Harrison Ford does. Sure. But with all that being said, Solo, a Star Wars story, does star Alden Ehrenreich,
who I love. And I'm surprised he's not more popular, by the way, because he's a good-looking dude. He's got a great attitude in this movie. And this is the fourth time I've watched this movie.
Sure.
Saw it twice in theaters because we loved it so much. To me, this is how I look at this movie. If you think Han Solo is a cool character, which I think everything is a cool character. I mean, I'm not Mark Hamill as Luke is my favorite character, but this is what a Han Solo movie should be. If you think anything differently, I think you don't actually understand it. This shouldn't be a Star Wars movie. This is supposed to be a Star Wars movie. It's funny. There's backstabbing. There's a lot of hijinks. You actually watch the original movies and you see how Han Solo is, that's what these movies are. And I just love the origin story of how he meets Chewbacca. There's actually, I will say right now, and I can say this about there's not a single part of this movie I dislike. I think it's a movie that is just, it's not the greatest movie ever made, but everything works. I like the villain. I like that Paul Bettany is a
Paul
villain.
Bettany, Dragon Boss. I didn't mention.
I love him being there. I like the side characters. I like Woody Harrelson being in it is super cool. Thandie Newton being in it. These are just really cool people doing this. Linda Hunt as Lady Proxima is super awesome. Yep. And so it's just, this is, to me, this might be the most Star Wars movie after the original Star Wars that isn't a Star Wars movie, because it gets it. It's like, oh, okay, Han Solo is this kind of just devil-may-care character, and this is what this movie is, and this is what I love about it. It's entertaining beginning to end. There's not a slow moment. I care about every single part of this movie. It's funny. Donald Glover is so good.
Let's talk about Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian. I don't think there's a better piece of casting from Disney, other than possibly Oscar Isaac as Poe Dameron, than Donald Glover as Lando, as young Lando.
And you're speaking just Star Wars. Just Star Wars or all Disney movies?
Well, Disney Star Wars.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. Yeah. You're right. It's 100% Donald Glover. It's perfect.
Yeah, it's just, he nailed, well, and that's the thing is, like, going back to Alden Ehrenreich, he's kind of, when we see Han in A New Hope, he's established. Mm-hmm. And he's got this sort of, like you said, devil may care, and he's got this almost, Jason Terry in the 2011 finals, just irrational confidence.
Great reference. No one's going to get it except for basketball people, which I don't care.
Right. Sure.
We're a basketball and a Star Wars podcast.
And the challenge.
But
this is where you kind of see that.
Yep.
Because he's not, like, he has the confidence, but he hasn't backed it up yet.
Right.
Right? In this movie. And this is where he starts to back it up.
Yep.
He makes the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs, and when he comes off, and he's like, yeah, just made the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs. Yeah. That's great.
And then what I like about that too is Chewie says something like, and he's like, well, if you're around down. Like, I like that too, because Chewie's always kind of like trying to, put him into space. And that's a great little part of that too, which is fun.
Here's the thing that I'm going to say about Chewie throughout. And I'm also going to say this about 3PO and R2. And this is point blank why Jar Jar didn't work. Okay? The humor in the original trilogy, and obviously we'll get to that, is a lot of Han and Chewie and 3PO and R2. And the reason that those two dynamics are funny is because it's all reactionary.
Yeah, we have no idea what they're saying.
In terms of what Han says to Chewie and what 3PO says to R2. Because we have no idea what Chewie and R2 are saying. And so that's why it's funny in a sense, because they have these, especially 3PO, they have these strong reactions. Mm-hmm. And it leaves a lot to the imagination of, well, what did he say there? What did Chewie say there? What did R2 say there? There's a great YouTube clip somewhere of the scene where they're repairing the Falcon on Hoth, and it's Peter Mayhew, and he's actually saying what Chewie's saying.
Oh, it's so good.
And so Harrison Ford can act to it, but then they go in and they overdub the Wookiee noises or whatever. And it's so funny because it's like, Chewie's like, when are we leaving? Where are we going? And it's like what he's actually saying. So I recommend that anybody look that up. I actually want to take a step back because we didn't talk about R2 or 3PO. And they appeared in all three of the prequels. Do you have anything to say about R2 and 3PO in the prequels other than that they were in them? And for some reason, R2 had more advanced technology in the prequels than he did in the...
You literally just stole, why is he more advanced? That was literally what I was saying. Like, they seem like better versions? Yeah. That was weird to me. Other than that, it actually bummed me out. I will say, like,
they're in it?
They're in it because it's like, you're using something you don't need to use. Or
I think they're the only
They're in every movie. They're in every movie. I think that's actually
I don't think they're in Solo. They're not in Solo.
I mean the 9. The 9.
Oh, the 9. They're in Rogue One.
They are in Rogue One. Yeah, they are in Rogue One.
Yeah, but they're not in Solo.
Right.
At least, cool, man, if they are, it's quick. But anyway, so the only character in Solo that I don't really like is I don't like Emilia Clarke's character. I
don't think you're supposed to like her. I think that's part of it too.
Yeah, the first time, so my history with this movie is a little bit different. I didn't get a chance to see it in the theater because, as I've said on a couple other episodes, the theater in the town where I live, the roof caved in right before Solo was going to be shown there, so I didn't get an opportunity to see it because I wasn't going to travel to see that particular movie by myself, because I know with Star Wars movies I usually have to see them by myself.
Fly out here, man. We'll see them anytime.
Yeah, you're right. But I finally got to watch it, and I had such low expectations because this was after Last Jedi, and I just, the previews looked like, oh god, this looks so lame, like they're really hamming it up and all this. And then I was very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
I think it was in part due to my low expectations. When I rewatched it to do this episode, I liked it a little bit less. I still liked it, but I liked it a little bit less. And I found that the main reason that I liked it a little bit less was because of her character. I just didn't think she held up as well the second time around, for me.
I mean, I get that in a way. I think what helps me is that every other character is so good in this movie.
Yeah.
And she actually is not that consequential.
Sure.
They make her seem consequential, and then she ends up not really being that consequential at the end of the game.
Right.
And so that's what I can see it to some degree. I don't know. I just think it's so fun. It doesn't take itself so seriously, which is what happens with the last three, and in a way, and it was a nice gap. It was a nice change of pace. And like I've said before, I'm actually surprised, like, and Enriquez, if I'm saying his name right, like, I'm surprised he's not in more things, because, like, he's good. And, like, he has a certain confidence about him. And it sounds weird, and I would never want this movie to be redone because I love it so much. But if they ever wanted to do a reboot of American Psycho, I like him as someone that would play that character. Because there's something, he has the joie de
He's got a little
vivre.
bit of that swag.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's just like, he can do it. And there's all those, like, really cool things about him. Like, he's handsome, he's got the confidence. He really he's a presence on this screen. Like, every time he's there, which is the entire, but you're just, boy, like, this is a good guy. Like, this is who I want to root for. There's not a single time where you're like, I want to root against this guy. Like, he's just, every time I watch it, I like it more. I have actually come to this conclusion. It's sort of funny how we went to the opposite direction. Every time I watch this movie, I'm like, nope, I like this movie more than I thought I would.
Yeah, I just, like I said, she doesn't hold up for me. The rest of the characters are great. Him, Alden Ehrenreich, and Woody Harrelson. I think Woody Harrelson's really underrated as an actor.
He's great in everything.
And yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
And Donald Glover really carry this thing. The only other thing that kind of bothers me is when they go in for their heist and steal the whatever it's called, and Chewie lets out all the Wookiees. They look like budget Wookiees.
They do look budget Wookiees.
So that's a little off-putting. They look like.
But maybe that's, like, the thing with Chewie, though, is, like, that's why Chewie's with, like, the big guys, because, like, most Wookiees are not Chewie grade.
Listen,
he's like the LeBron.
Those things look like no. Because in Revenge of the Sith, they all look awesome.
That's true.
Some of them look better than him. Oh man, it was like they had some extra costumes from a really old Charlton Heston Planet of the Apes movie laying around.
It's the Step Brothers thing where they have the wrong. It doesn't get the actual mask. Yeah.
It was rough.
Yeah.
Those were budget Wookiees for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think the unfortunate thing about Solo is that it clearly was left on a cliffhanger with Darth Maul showing back up.
Yeah.
At the end of it. Spoilers if you haven't seen Solo.
If you're listening to this podcast and you haven't seen these movies, I don't really know what to tell you. Ron Howard directed this movie too, and that's important to know because he's a great director.
But it clearly ended on a cliffhanger, and I don't think they're going to get an opportunity to do a follow up. At least that's what I haven't heard anything. And I mean, hell, Disney just announced 50 new things, and Solo wasn't one of them. So, but I do think that what this movie has going for it is it does seem to have a bit of a cult following.
Mm-hmm.
Since it's left the theaters. A couple of thoughts from the listeners on this. Savannah wrote that
she's
Lando
a friend of
was
our
good.
program now, I think.
Yeah, right. She wrote in that there's some the Lando's awesome, and there was some good parts, but overall she kind of thought it was kind of average. Jared L thought the whole movie was very entertaining.
He's right.
Dan M said at least it was fun. Yeah. Yeah. So here's the thing: is as you said, Solo gets the lightheartedness of Star Wars correct the whole way through.
Yeah.
And to kind of the other side of that coin, that I have been, since the sequel started, banging the drum about, is the over-the-top campy humor that is the Disneyfication of Star Wars is not found in the original trilogy, A New Hope through Jedi. You know, the other side of that coin is Rogue One, which nails the aesthetic of the original trilogy to a T. This is my favorite Disney Star Wars movie, and it's really not even close. I rewatched it here real recently for this podcast, and it's just better. It just got better to me every time that I've seen it. It's dark. It shows that the rebels aren't all good guys.
Right.
You know, Cassian Andor, who's going to be getting his own prequel series on Disney Plus or miniseries or whatever, he's another one of those guys that he's willing to do whatever. He's down for the get down, basically. And
which I love.
You know, he's played by Diego Luna. He's he's killing informants, and he's ready to, assassinate this character's dad and everything. So let me just go through the characters. Jyn Erso, played by Felicity Jones. Cassian Andor, we mentioned Diego Luna. His droid K2SO, Alan Tudyk. Chirrut, Donnie Yen. Baz Malbus, Wen Jiang. The bad guy is Orson Krennic, played by Ben Mendelsohn. Digitally de-aged Guy Henry plays Moff Tarkin. Forrest Whitaker makes an appearance with Saw Gerrera. And then Galen Erso, who's the main character, Jyn Erso's father, is played very capably by Mads Mikkelsen of Hannibal fame. So basically, this movie is the story of why there's a fatal flaw in the Death Star and how that was delivered to the rebellion.
Yeah.
And Galen Erso is this engineer, and he basically he's being held captive, and he's being forced to design the Death Star based on the plans that were given to the Sith in the whole way back in Attack of the Clones. Jyn is his daughter, and she's kind of brought into the rebellion, and it's her objective to find her dad to rescue him, and it's Cassian Andor's objective to find her dad to assassinate him, which is pretty dark. And they meet these other guys. Chirrut, he's blind. He's of course the guy who is famous for saying, "I'm one with the Force is with me. I'm one with the Force is with me," and he's taking stormtroopers out right and left. Baz Malbus has the giant like Ghostbusters, almost like proton pack blaster, which is pretty cool. Some of these other characters. Bodhi Rook is the pilot. So the movie overall, it's dark. I mean, spoilers for Rogue One, everyone dies.
Yep.
At the end.
Yep.
Like literally everyone dies. They go onto this planet. It's very cool. It's a tropical planet. There's beaches, which you don't see too much in Star Wars, throughout the different environments. So that's very cool. The stormtroopers are like sand colored and everything. A special shout out to K2SO. He's a reprogrammed Imperial droid.
Yes.
He's funny.
Great.
Like he's funny in the way that like R2 and 3PO are funny.
Yeah,
it's
he's
like
great.
Very dry. It's not campy. It's very dry. It's very direct. And like some of the things that he says are just 10 out of 10 hilarious.
Love it.
Alan Tudyk is great.
The thing that I will say about this movie, and I said this because I watched this and Solo back to back. This is the exact opposite of Solo.
Right.
In the best possible way.
Right.
Like, I love both of those movies equal. Like, I actually walked away saying, I think these movies are equal movies. You have the good side. And this literally how I said it. You have the Jedi and you have the Sith of these movies.
Right.
And I mean, like, it's just like these. It's so weird to me that these movies exist in the same realm of 7, 8, 9. Right? I mean, because like these movies actually are Star Wars movies in the way that Star Wars movies are supposed to be made, but yet 7, 8, 9. And I shouldn't even say it because 7 actually is. Well, and we'll get to that.
Fine.
Right, and it is more of a. But with 8 and 9 existing, and then these are in this mix. These movies are, like you said, Rogue One, and I wouldn't disagree with you. Like I just like Solo more than this, and just right. It's saying Solo is, if we're just using a scale of 1 to 10 on Star Wars movies, with Empire Strikes Back being a 95, and then but it's like. These movies are like 0.3 difference. I mean, it's not even a big. To me, it's not a big difference. It's just that it depends if you want to go dark or funny. And I just prefer. Sure. Just my general thing is I prefer funny. This movie's so good, like it. Yeah. And what I think actually makes this movie so good is it's a Star Wars movie, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's important. It's important with like the Death Star and things like that. But if you're not a Star Wars fan. But let's say you're just like, you have a movie night and, it's post-COVID and you can have people over and you have Rogue One on. Someone's like, well, I've never seen Star Wars. Like, you might still like this. Like, there's a chance that someone that has never watched a Star Wars movie watches this movie and they're like, that's a pretty good movie. Because there's, you to know something about Star Wars helps, but to not know doesn't hurt. And you're like, this is just a really good movie, really good acting.
What new friend of the show, Savannah, actually wrote it and said, Rogue One, just a good movie. Kind of feels like it's just an action movie first, not really a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is true. I mean, it's kind of like, but the question kind of becomes, do you need lightsabers and Jedi and Sith to be good quality Star Wars content? No,
you don't.
And I think that this and The Mandalorian both answer that question.
Well,
there's some lightsabers in The Mandalorian,
right,
here and there.
Yeah,
but overall,
right? You don't need. Yeah, you don't. I mean, blasters help. Blasters always help.
Right.
But I think, and here's my thing, and I jokingly say things like this because when certain movies come out, I'm like, so and so in space. I just love a good space flick.
Yeah, right.
I love. I shouldn't even joke around. I love a good space flick because it's literally a movie where you watch. Anytime you see a really good space movie, you're like, you don't have to worry about it being real. You don't have to worry about it relating to me. None of this matters. Just give me a good space flick where, whether it's the future, the past, the present, you're in space. None of this matters to me because I'm not in. Well, I am in space. We are technically all in space.
All right, philosopher.
All of us are in space. We're just in our own space, but not the outer space. I got super, sorry. There's the clip that's probably the clip for the show. When I write my book. Globes is already taken. Bubbles is already taken. I'm trying to think which slur
let's reel it in here.
I'm sorry. Anyhow, I'm sorry. I got super, I love philosophy. This movie it hits that perfect. And for me, it's just like, it literally is just like Solo. It hits that perfect thing where, like, you're a Star Wars movie, but you don't necessarily have to be.
Right. So I'm going to say this about Rogue One. There's a 15-second clip at the end of the movie that's so good that it wipes out how bad Hayden Christensen was. And it's when Darth Vader arrives in the hallway and just starts going absolute.
It's so good.
He's just going absolute ham in that hallway. And it's that moment where it's like, oh yeah, this is that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
He shows up first of all, and then, another thing where I think this is an underrated sort of factoid is that, and what's his name, Kennec has to visit Vader at his castle on Mustafar. He built a castle on the planet where he got jacked up.
Yep.
That's kind of cool.
It's super cool.
But he shows up at the end of this, and they're trying to pass the Death Star plans and get away, and he just starts annihilating people. And it's in a way that it's like, you know, in the one episode of The Mandalorian where Ahsoka just starts cutting through that's cool. You know what I mean? Or the most recent episode where some things happen. The way Vader slices through those guys in Rogue One, to me, because I kind of have, like, Vader's one of those, like, you kind of root for the bad guy.
Oh, sure. And
deals.
there's a reason why these movies work.
Yeah. And, you know, to see him at his absolute most destructive power is just awe-inspiring.
It's super cool.
Goosebumps.
Yeah.
It's goosebumps. It's you know, it's not, you can't rank it up there in the best lightsaber fights because it's not a fight, it's just a butchering.
Right, it's just a butchering.
He cuts through those rebel troops like a hot knife through butter.
It's such a great scene.
Absolutely great. It's great.
When you see that, I saw this movie in theater, and you know you're not supposed to root, like you say, you're not supposed to root for him. Everyone lost their mind. Everybody in the theater is like, "Oh my god, this is incredible!"
I think everybody knows. Like prior to that point, like everybody was in the theater when I saw it, and I think this is probably a fairly, I would assume, widespread feeling is that prior to that moment, everybody was like, this is a good movie. And then that happens and it's just like, oh.
Ooh, we just done changed the game, son.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's like
great.
You said, bringing in Aroldis Chapman throwing 101 in the ninth inning.
Yep.
That's what that was.
Yep. That fastball is moving all over the place. You're not hitting it.
It's baseball, basketball, The Challenge, Mandalorian, Star Wars, BeXtraG Podcast publishes every Friday morning.
Tell your mothers.
7 a.m. Tell your mothers. So that's going to conclude part one of this episode. We're going to cut things in half here.
With a lightsaber.
Cut it in half with a light. Yeah, like Darth Vader running through those rebels. So in part two, we're going to cover the original trilogy, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, The Return of the Jedi. And then also The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker. So stay tuned. We hope you appreciate this conversation. We hope you appreciate the podcast in general and keep listening. And hope you enjoyed the show. And we'll see you for next time. Take care, guys.
Take care, guys. Love you guys. Thanks for listening.
Tell your mothers.
Tell your mothers.